You know about his incredible career, you know about his famous friends and family, and you know all the details about his controversial death. But it's the things you don't know about Michael Jackson that will shock you.
Not a lot makes sense when it comes to Michael Jackson, and that's why he's so interesting to talk about.
From his first romantic encounter.
That was his first sexual experience.
It really shows, just how naive Michael Jackson was.
To pre-show rituals only the man in the mirror knew about.
Ricola.
And things we accepted as facts.
It's widely reported that Diana Ross was the one who discovered the Jackson 5.
That turned out to be lies.
He was the one who actually got them their audition with Motown Records.
If you thought you knew everything about the King of Pop, think again. Here's 25 things you didn't know about Michael Jackson. Kicking things off at number 25, Michael Jackson's children did not have to worry about being left home alone. Michael Jackson made many young friends over the years, but the most well-known was Macaulay Culkin from the blockbuster Home Alone.
Michael Jackson, having seen him in that movie, called him up and they became friends, and next thing we know, Macaulay is the star of Michael Jackson's video for Black or White.
Of course, Michael Jackson and Macaulay Culkin were extremely close. People thought it was a very odd pairing, but it was a pairing that lasted for years.
In fact, Michael trusted his pal Mac so much that he made him godfather to his two oldest children, Prince and Paris.
Macaulay Culkin, he chose to be the godfather of his kids because he was very close to Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, we've known each other for 12, going on 13 years now.
Macaulay Culkin was so young. He's not who you would typically imagine to be a godfather.
Why you would make Macaulay Culkin the godfather of your kids is beyond me. I mean, won't he just leave them home alone?
Number 24, MJ's chimp was bad.
Michael Jackson's had some wild pets. Of course, nobody can forget about Bubbles, the pet monkey that now lives in Florida.
Forget about Liz and Brooke. Michael's most intriguing companion from the 80s has to be Bubbles.
Every artist has an entourage, and you've got to bring that entourage to your recording session. For Michael Jackson, that entourage included a chimp. Bubbles sat in on the recording sessions for the Bad album, and you have to wonder, did he inspire some lyrics?
That's right. The celebrity primate was on hand while Jackson recorded his 1987 album, Bad.
Who's bad?
Bubbles clearly was a bestie of Michael Jackson and was there for the process.
Bubbles was even on the set while Michael made this music video for Bad.
He was his best friend at the time. It's like bringing your puppy, only he had a best friend who was a chimp.
I was so surprised to hear that because you'd think having a chimp there would be distracting. I'm sure Bubbles didn't just sit quietly like a librarian.
I don't know how Quincy Jones must have felt, and ironically, it was the last time Quincy worked with Michael too. So maybe Bubbles had something to do with the demise of Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson's great relationship.
Bubbles might have cameos on the album, but we really don't know. I don't know if Bubbles got the credit he deserved.
Was he kind of behind the boards? Was he, working on an MPC? I'm not sure.
I have no idea what he did during the recording session. Maybe he was leaping all over the, band equipment.
If you're a sound booth person working on Bad, and you're just so geeked to be working with Michael Jackson, you're gonna kind of ignore the elephant in the room, or in this case, the chimpanzee in the studio.
It's certainly one of those things that only Michael Jackson can get away with.
Number 23, the King of Pop's castle was often a tent. In 1988, MJ purchased a large swath of lands near Santa Barbara and named the nearly 3,000-acre estate Neverland.
I think that he probably had this interesting connection with nature. We do know on the Neverland Ranch property that he loved to climb up in a tree, and a favorite tree that he liked to hang out in.
And Michael would often forego the comfort of his bed to sleep in various teepees he put up around his vast property.
If you have this beautiful house, amazing bedroom, you would go off to some tent in the yard. That's my worst nightmare.
Not a lot makes sense when it comes to Michael Jackson, and that's why he's so intriguing and so interesting to talk about.
Michael was very different. When he was very deep in thought, he reportedly would sleep in a teepee. And I guess, why not? If you own Neverland and you've got all that land, might as well use it.
It was like a sanctuary. These Indian teepees that he created, very cool. I think I would have a couple of teepees on my property if I could afford them.
Number 22, MC Hammer was told to beat it. By the early 90s, Michael Jackson was the undisputed King of Pop. But a self-described heir apparent was rising out of the hip-hop world.
MC Hammer was, becoming a big star.
As seen here in his 1990 video, You Can't Touch This, Hammer brought a whole new sense of pizzazz to MTV.
During the late 80s, Hammer came onto the scene with these outlandish dance moves and these big pants, and he claimed to be a better dancer than Michael Jackson.
Hammer was like this rising icon in hip hop and made a lot of really great danceable tracks, and obviously was influenced by Michael Jackson, and at one point kind of threw the glittery glove down and challenged him.
That's right. While promoting his Hammerman cartoon, Hammer challenged the master of the moonwalk to a dance-off concert tour.
That's a pretty impressive feat. Not many people would go around challenging Michael Jackson. He's pretty badass when it comes to dancing.
Michael's known for his little tight high water pants, and MC Hammer's known for the hammer pants. I don't know what kind of dance-off that would be. That'd be interesting.
The challenge between these two, I would have loved to see that every second of it.
Who was the best? Who was the baddest? And Michael Jackson answered, beat it.
Yep. Jackson said, "Stop. Hammer time," and refused the invitation.
Michael Jackson watched his moves and he was like, you know what? You stole all my moves anyways. There's no point in dance-off.
There was no contest. Hammer had not a chance.
Sorry, MC Hammer, you're awesome, but Michael Jackson would win hands down.
Michael Jackson had a huge repertoire, and MC, can you really moonwalk? We never saw any evidence of that.
I just don't think Hammer could have hung with Michael Jackson. I think if you ask him, he'd probably say the same thing now too.
Yeah!
Number 21. Michael Jackson's first experience was supreme.
Michael Jackson and Diana Ross were obviously extremely close.
Diana Ross mentored Michael Jackson.
She taught Michael how to handle celebrity and how to be a superstar, because at the time, Diana Ross was probably the preeminent superstar at Motown Records.
But that was a very much mother-son relationship which lasted his whole life.
But early on during their friendship, Michael admitted to a disconcerting encounter with Miss Ross.
He accidentally once kissed her on the lips, but freaked out because he thought maybe that was his first sexual experience.
Diana Ross was his idol, and he thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world at one point. And he got to kiss her, and he thought, wow, I lost my virginity to Diana Ross.
The idea that, Michael Jackson accidentally kisses her and considers that to be one of his first sexual experiences is really hilarious and really cute at the same time. It really shows, just how naive Michael Jackson was and just how innocent Michael Jackson was.
Number 20. MJ thought a centipede was his biggest competition.
Michael Jackson sat very high on his throne, but he always thought he would be knocked off by somebody within his own family.
The fear wasn't where you would expect, say Jermaine or Janet. It was always Rebbie.
That's right. In the large and talented Jackson family, Michael was convinced the eldest sibling, Rebbie, would become the next big thing.
Michael understood how talented she was, and he wrote and produced Centipede, which was her biggest hit.
And Rebbie's video was also played on MTV, like her famous brother.
She's the oldest of the kids, and I think he obviously really looked up to Rebbie. She was one of his caretakers along with the mother. When she decided to enter the family business, I'm sure he thought she was going to blow up and be a really big deal.
He always feared her, but when you listen to her music, you can understand why. She was very talented. She is very talented.
And though Centipede went to number 4 on the R&B chart, Rebbie never scored another hit. And it turned out to be another sister that Michael should have been looking out for all along.
It was actually Janet Jackson who went on to become the most successful of the Jackson women, not Rebbie.
Later in the show,
another day, another rumor.
Oh, well, that just kind of adds to, the oddness that is Michael Jackson.
we'll reveal who really started all those wild Michael Jackson rumors. But up next, we'll tell you how Jackson broke the bank and which singer discovered the Jackson 5. Hint, it wasn't Diana. There's much more when 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson returns. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 19. Michael lost years off his life when he was discovered.
The biggest non-secret in Hollywood is everybody lies about their age. Michael Jackson learned it at an age where no one should be lying about their age.
In 1969, as the Jackson 5 geared up to release their debut album, it was reported that the group's singer was 8-year-old Michael, which came as a surprise to the young star, who was actually 10.
The head of the label told him no to say you're 8, it's better for publicity, so that's how that came about.
It was widely reported that he was 8 years old, which is a very old Hollywood trick. They knock off a few years for the cute factor.
He learned a lesson that he carried throughout life, that there are spins, and you have to spin certain things. Michael was so much smaller than his brothers. Jackie and Jermaine and they towered over Michael. So you could say, oh, this is a little kid.
He did have such a light voice that it would make sense that maybe he'd be a little bit younger.
It worked to perfection. It worked exactly the way Michael and Joe and Berry Gordy wanted it to work.
Number 18. Michael and Janet broke the bank when they collaborated.
Michael and Janet had been the subject of many rumors, so this was their opportunity to get out some of that frustration.
In 1993, the duo filmed the video for their single Scream, costing a hefty $7 million.
The price tag of having those two in a video alone is going to be probably half of what it cost, to actually make the video.
Scream was shot over 11 days and they spent over $500,000 a day.
$7 million, high tech, Michael Jackson and Janet in these fabulous kind of ruffled tops and black tight pants, and lots of high tech. Great, great.
And Michael Jackson is breaking guitars. Maybe he broke one too many and that's what drove up the budget.
To this day, Scream is listed by the Guinness Book of World Records as the most expensive music video ever.
I don't know that I would pay $7 million to make that video, although maybe it was just worth it having Michael and Janet in the same video.
Number 17. Jackson deleted Dirty Diana. Michael's hit song, Dirty Diana, was scheduled for a 1988 live performance at Wembley Stadium during the Bad World Tour.
But he felt it would be disrespectful to Princess Diana to play that song.
However, upon meeting Michael, Diana insisted otherwise.
He was going to remove Dirty Diana from his lineup, but then she asked him not to. She loved the song and wanted him to perform it.
He later went on to perform the song with the Princess of Wales in attendance.
So he was relieved that two reasons. She loved something he did and he got to perform it in front of her.
Number 16. A famous knight discovered the Jackson 5.
It's widely reported that Diana Ross was the one who discovered the Jackson 5.
But it was really Gladys Knight who discovered the singing sensations during an amateur night showdown at the Apollo in 1967.
Joe Jackson would take the Jackson 5 everywhere, looking for that big break. Gladys Knight was at one of the shows and she fell head over heels for the Jackson 5. And she was the one who actually got them their audition with Berry Gordy and Motown Records.
The group went on to open for Gladys Knight and the Pips. But when the Jackson 5 released their debut album under Motown in 1969, it was Diana Ross's star power that was used for marketing.
Their first album is Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5.
Diana did that as a favor to Berry Gordy. He asked if she would formally present the Jackson 5. It made sense because Diana Ross was a very huge star at that time. Well, thankfully Gladys Knight never jumped on the midnight train to Georgia. She didn't try and out-diva Diana Ross.
Straight ahead.
She says that they were on her bed, they got close to each other, they kissed very briefly.
We'll tell you which young starlet got up close and personal with Michael in the 70s. Plus, we'll reveal how Michael's hands were just as talented as his feet. 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. We'll be right back here on TV Guide Network. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 15. Michael Jackson was more than just a collector of art.
Excuse me, I want that one there.
We all know that Michael Jackson was musically inclined, but he was also an artist of another kind. He did several drawings, which he was very dedicated to, and he started at a young age and continued throughout his life.
There's one in particular where he drew Mickey Mouse with the word bad above his head. Mickey is clearly wearing a jacket that Michael Jackson used to wear. So it's interesting to look at Michael Jackson putting his own clothing on Mickey Mouse.
And I don't know if he was tracing these things or drawing them freehand, but he was doing a pretty great job.
Whether it's of Mickey Mouse wearing his leather jacket or drawings of Charlie Chaplin, he was actually really, really talented as an artist as well. And it's not a surprise. He was an artistic genius.
That's the bathing of Apollo, right?
Yes. Michael definitely knows his art.
Obviously.
Number 14. Michael Jackson started his own rumors.
A little known secret in Hollywood is that a lot of celebrities put their own rumors out. They have relationships with certain members of the press, and if there's something they want out there, they'll get it out there.
That's how the 1980s were for Michael Jackson.
And you need only to look at Jackson's 1989 Leave Me Alone video for the laundry list of gossip.
He wanted to have a little fun at the tabloid media's expense because those were big headlines back in the day.
Sleeping in this oxygen chamber.
But that was a rumor, right?
Building a shrine to Elizabeth Taylor.
That he and LaToya Jackson are the same person.
Wanting to buy the Elephant Man's bones.
That was weird. I mean, I was a little kid when that rumor came out, and I was like, ew.
He wants the Elephant Man bones? Why not? He can buy them. What else is he going to do with his time?
Now, people might think, well, are those rumors? Maybe it was a PR stunt, but in truth, Michael was getting more bizarre, buying weird and strange things anyway. So there was some truth.
Number 13. MJ had a crush on a little darling.
Michael Jackson was linked to a lot of the hottest young stars at the time. Brooke Shields, another one was Tatum O'Neal.
Of course, Tatum O'Neal was famous. She won an Oscar when she was a little girl, Ryan O'Neal's daughter.
He was 17, she was 12. Now, supposedly, he says that she took him up to her room and tried to seduce him. And she says, no, that's not true at all.
She says that they were on her bed, they got close to each other, they kissed very briefly, but it was definitely an awkward moment. Now, of course, to Michael Jackson's credit, who hasn't had that kind of awkward moment? Especially if you're Michael Jackson and you're there with Tatum O'Neal. That's a lot of pressure.
Did it happen? I don't know. We'll never know.
It's kind of a cute little story, kind of.
Number 12. Michael made more than just fashion statements.
For all the craziness and wacky things he did, he was a huge humanitarian.
Michael Jackson was asked why he was wearing this armband, and he said it symbolized the suffering of children around the world.
And at this point in his life, he wasn't so weird. It was just an armband. It wasn't an armband and a chimpanzee. It was just an armband. So people kind of got it, and he made a point. He loved children. He wanted to help them.
I like to say children will always hold a special place in my heart.
Now, Michael Jackson didn't just have a black armband, he had a red armband, a white armband. It depended on what he wore. Of course, it had to color coordinate. Michael Jackson was a man of style.
Number 11. Michael Jackson was best man for a day.
Liza Minnelli married David Guest in 2002. It was, so far in the annals of Hollywood, the wackiest wedding ever.
A wedding where people, even stars, were wondering who was there.
I mean, just an incredible circus. And Michael Jackson and Tito were the best men, which is just so funny to me.
Why? Oh, why am I doing this?
Apparently, Michael Jackson and David Guest grew up in the same area, went to the same plastic surgeon. It's just one bizarre circle. Really is.
Have you ever seen the pictures? It was crazy.
Especially, you remember the get-up that he wore at the wedding. So not wedding attire at all, but very much pop star attire. That's gotta be cool.
Up next.
I personally thought he'd have some crazy, whole ritual and chanting and stuff.
We'll tell you how the gloved one kept his perfect pipes sounding oh so sweet. Plus, what's Jackson's connection to strip clubs? We've got the revealing answer when 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson returns. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 10. MJ stood up for a simple life.
Not only is Macaulay Culkin the godfather to Michael Jackson's kids, but Michael Jackson is godfather to Lionel Richie's daughter, Nicole Richie.
Now, the way this came about is that Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie worked together on a Kenny Rogers song in 1981 called Going Back to Alabama. This also happened to be the same year Nicole Richie was born. So out of a collaboration came another collaboration, Nicole Richie.
Remember, Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie wrote We Are the World. So they spent a lot of time together when they were younger, and when Nicole was younger, so he was her godfather. There would never be a moment when he could kind of take on her life, although he could have given her lots of fabulous gifts.
Could you imagine growing up in the 80s, particularly with Michael Jackson as your godfather? That means you get to see Thriller up close, go to the concerts, hang out at Neverland. Be great. Are you kidding?
You know, Lionel Richie made Michael co-godfather with Quincy Jones, and no wonder Nicole Richie's so like rock and roll. If your godfathers were Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones, you're guaranteed to be the coolest kid in the school, okay? Coolest one.
Nicole Richie was destined to be famous.
I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to sink my teeth into everything, into music, books, acting. I'm lucky enough to be able to do all of it.
This is a girl who just had a lot of luck and was surrounded by a lot of people who are powerful in this industry.
It's the hope of every parent that your kid upstages.
Number 9. Jackson had a secret to keeping his voice so sweet.
Lots of singers have pre-concert rituals. They have to keep their voices intact and have to do many things to make sure that they can sing properly and feel okay. Well, Michael Jackson had one that was very particular.
Michael Jackson liked to take Ricola cough drops and put them in hot water and then drink them before performances because he says that it coated his throat. Ricola.
And really, it's not unlike other artists. In fact, his sister Riri, she would take a shot of brandy before her shows. It clears the throat.
I personally thought he'd have some crazy, like, you know, whole ritual and chanting and stuff, but no, just a Ricola, some water, off he went.
If Ricola only knew that Michael Jackson used their product to help his throat, they would have been pounding down his door for a product endorsement deal.
I have a feeling Ricola candy sales are going to skyrocket after people find out about this.
If I'm Michael Jackson, I'd be like top locking in the mirror or something before I went out on stage. I mean, wouldn't you like kind of do one of those like signature Michael Jackson moves or something? That could just be the dork in me though.
Number 8. The Jackson 5's early gigs were very revealing.
Yes, even the Jackson 5 had humble beginnings. They come from a town called Gary, Indiana. It wasn't always that Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 were singing on Motown specials or Soul Train or MTV or the Grammy Awards. They had to start somewhere too.
Joe Jackson, you know, there are a lot of sketchy stories surrounding him. You know, he really did whatever it took to get his kids' band, the Jackson 5, to where they got to. Apparently, when Michael was really young, the Jackson 5 had to open for striptease acts and strip clubs. Now, that is not terribly glamorous. You cannot really imagine these young kids in seedy strip joints performing. And I think that's probably another thing that people resent Michael Jackson's father for.
Imagine the conversation between the Jackson 5 and their dad/manager, or dadager, Joe Jackson. They're asking him, "Dad, where's our next venue?" "A strip club."
I think a lot of people question that decision because I don't think it's really healthy to have young boys around these naked, gyrating women.
No, I was not surprised that Joe Jackson had his kids performing in strip clubs because that was the way to success at that point. So he was smart. He got them out there. He got them out there, but he made them wear blindfolds when the strippers came on.
Number 7. MJ's autograph was worth $1 million.
In 1984, the U.S. Library accused Michael Jackson of owing $1 million in overdue book fees.
So Michael Jackson was an avid reader. The only problem is he didn't want to return the books to the library.
Naughty, naughty. Now, you'd think he'd have a plethora of assistants to return them for him, but apparently not. I don't know how many books he borrowed or how long he had them, but I feel like the entire Library of Congress must have been in the Neverland Ranch, because that just doesn't make any sense. Those kind librarians said that they would take the books back free of charge, no fines, if Michael Jackson would autograph the books.
It was the smartest way that someone ever got Michael to sign autographs. He got to sign all of these books instead of paying the library fee, but who owes $1 million to the library? I mean, you talk about one late book.
Later, it's the #1 thing you didn't know about Michael Jackson. But up next,
he sounds like Michael Jackson. He sings like Michael Jackson.
Nobody knew for years and years and years if it was really Michael, if it was an imposter.
We'll tell you about Michael Jackson's most mysterious role. Plus, we'll reveal how the King of Pop's royal status went way beyond the music biz. 25 things you didn't know about Michael Jackson. We'll be right back here on TV Guide Network. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 6. Dating was a game to Michael Jackson.
Please join me in a special dating game welcome for a fine young man, Michael Jackson.
At the wee tender age of 14, Michael Jackson was a contestant on the popular TV show The Dating Game.
He was so adorable. He had a big afro. He had on a little suit. He was very sweet. He asked good questions. He listened carefully. The girls were so excited that it was Michael Jackson.
What do two kids like us do on a date?
It showed us just how sweet and shy and innocent Michael Jackson is. The questions were so cute. You just kind of wanted to pat him on top of his afro.
Michael Jackson asked this question on the show. He said, "Everywhere I go, girls follow me. What would you do in that situation?" And she said,
"Get away from him. He's mine, not yours."
And he picked this girl, and she looked like she was, 2 feet 2. I mean, he was towering over her, and she was giggling, and he was giggling, and he kind of gave her a peck on the cheek.
Contestant number 1, LaTanya Simmons, was the lucky little lady who won the date. Their date wasn't very intimate, but it was definitely memorable.
Michael Jackson was so young at the time, he was 14, that the girl's mother came on the date and they had a chaperone.
You not only win a date with like your favorite, pop star icon at that time, but the date is actually to go, sit in the front row and see him in concert, perform in New York City, of all places. Like, how cool.
Number 5. MJ's most animated role was a secret.
They say you're not anyone unless you've voiced a character on The Simpsons. Michael Jackson, the most famous person in the world, did a voice in The Simpsons.
In this episode of The Simpsons, you have this big, thick white guy who's a mental patient because he thinks that he's Michael Jackson. He sounds like Michael Jackson. He sings like Michael Jackson. And it turns out it really was Michael Jackson voicing him.
But how did the man who the world watched turn from black to white turn yellow?
So imagine being Matt, the creator of The Simpsons, and you get this call from Michael Jackson saying, "Hey Matt, I'm a fan of the show and I'd love to do some work on it." Now, I don't think it took Matt very long to say, yes.
One of the biggest stars in the world provided a guest voice, but no one in the world knew it was really him.
What an amazing secret. You'd think that The Simpsons producers would want to tell everyone Michael Jackson voiced a character, but because of contractual issues, they couldn't.
Nobody knew for years and years and years if it was really Michael, if it was an imposter. He's not on the credits.
It didn't come out until many years later. He had a pseudonym. Michael Jackson played the role under the name John J. Smith.
It doesn't get much more basic than John J. Smith. That's so not a pop star name. That shows just how great of a sense of humor Michael Jackson had, how humble he was that he didn't even want credit for it.
Voicing Leon Kompowski wasn't the only role in The Simpsons' lives that Michael played without receiving credit. He wrote Happy Birthday Lisa and co-wrote Do the Bartman without any official acknowledgement. Number 4. Jackson was more than just the king of pop.
Sure, Michael Jackson was the king of pop, but he also was a king in West Africa. During a 1992 visit to Gabon, he was crowned king, and he even got a crown jewel placed upon his head made of gold.
The king there made him a king of the village, and it seems only fitting that the king of pop was made an actual king in West Africa.
Thousands of people came out to see him and stream out of their houses, out of their villages. I mean, he really was the king of Gabon and maybe even the king of Africa.
Michael Jackson had no problem ruling the pop charts. But how would he have done as a ruler of a country?
The first ruling that Michael Jackson would have had, or the first ruling that he should have had, was that everyone absolutely learn how to moonwalk. That has to be like, you know, the tribal dance of greeting.
The whole kingdom would have to learn to moonwalk. What would happen to people like me who just couldn't do it?
Off with their heads.
I would imagine that he would clap his hands and they'll start dancing, and he'd have a tribe doing the moonwalk and another tribe giving him some of his favorite foods.
I think Michael Jackson would have been a great king because he was such an amazing humanitarian and philanthropist, and these are qualities that make a great ruler.
Still to come, what network said no to the King of Pop? We've got the whole story. But up next,
he was just Mr. Everything when it came to entertainment. There was nothing he couldn't do.
We'll reveal how Jackson actually defied gravity. Stick around. There's more 25 things you didn't know about Michael Jackson right after the break. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 3, Michael's shoes defied gravity.
Michael Jackson didn't just wear patent leather shoes, he owned a patent. He actually owned the patent to shoes that allowed him to defy gravity. We all remember that Smooth Criminal video where he's dressed in a suit and he's dancing and it looks like he's defying gravity. Guess what? He was, with the help of a scientific invention. He actually owned the patent to the device that allowed him to look like he was defying gravity.
Actually, I think a lot of people thought it was just trick camera. It was probably one of the coolest things you've ever seen in a music video on camera. And the idea that Michael Jackson actually patented a dance move is so Michael Jackson, it's unbelievable. I mean, who else can do something like that?
We had the moonwalker, we had the spin and twirl, but the idea of him leaning forward and looking like he's defying gravity, this was probably one of the more inventive moves. And a lot of people thought it was special effects using wires.
When I discovered that Michael Jackson had developed a shoe that helped him lean forward for the Smooth Criminal dance, that it wasn't just him and his dancers and their amazing dance skills, I was really devastated.
It just showed too that when he wanted to be, Michael was a really good and savvy, shrewd business person.
With the pegs or with some type of marionette string attached to me, I couldn't do it, but that's why people were paying a lot of money to see Michael Jackson in concert do that move.
Number 2, Michael Jackson turned to the streets for inspiration.
Michael Jackson's most famous dance move, hands down, is the moonwalk. He allegedly got inspiration by watching some kids in South Central Los Angeles that were doing the same thing, so he thought, hey, I'm gonna do it.
And he saw these inner city children doing this dance that he labeled the moonwalk. And he mastered it. He practiced it, and of course he unveiled it at the Motown 25 special. And you know, it just changed everything with the way people view dancing and music together.
And if you look at the video of that, the second he did it, the entire audience went, ah! It was just an instant fame right there. And he just, you know, probably saw it right on a street corner and thought, yeah, I can do that, but I can do it better.
It's not a secret that Michael Jackson pulled a lot of his popular dance moves from kids on the streets. I mean, he's talked about that several times where he would go into the hood and would watch whatever kids were doing in front of, like, you know, fire hydrants, whatever dance moves, and would learn some of those dance moves.
You know, Michael was a big humanitarian. I'm sure he went back and said, you know what, kids, you hooked me up. Here's a couple thousand.
Everybody wanted to do the moonwalk as soon as they saw it. Everybody wanted to do the moonwalk 10 years later. Everybody still wants to do the moonwalk.
He was the consummate pro. He was just Mr. Everything when it came to entertainment.
Straight ahead.
It's almost laughable, but it almost didn't air.
We'll reveal the massive Michael Jackson career moment that almost went unseen. Who once turned down one of music's best-selling artists? We'll tell you when 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson returns. Welcome back to 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. Number 1. MTV rejected Michael Jackson.
An interesting thing about Michael Jackson is that MTV originally did not want to air his Billie Jean video.
It's almost laughable.
You couldn't deny playing Billie Jean. How could you?
But it almost didn't air. MTV at first thought this may not be the right video for them. It wasn't the right demographic.
MTV is trying to establish itself as a network. And they're offered by CBS this video, Billie Jean, and they turn it down. And they turn it down for one reason, because they felt that a video by a black artist would not cross over to white kids who were their main audience.
I can understand if they were having some hesitation, because if all the rave was big hair band back in the 80s, then that they were speaking to their audience. But the great thing about Michael Jackson is he speaks to every audience. Rockers, rappers, thugs and school marms all loved Michael Jackson.
So CBS Records threatened to pull all their other artists from MTV to say to the world, this is MTV's position on black artists unless they showed Billie Jean, and they did.
It went on to be the highest rated video on the network, and it proved that a black artist could appeal to young white teenagers.
This video made us all enjoy the art of music videos. We watched him dancing, singing. You could see the dance moves, you could feel the emotion, and everyone wanted to learn those moves.
With the sidewalk lights coming up and the dancing down the street. I mean, that really is classic Michael Jackson. And everyone from, Usher to Justin Timberlake have done variations of what that video is in their own videos.
Imagine a world where MTV did not decide to run the Billie Jean video. This would be a world without MTV. Michael Jackson made MTV what it is today, and they will always have to thank him for that.
That does it for 25 Things You Didn't Know About Michael Jackson. For more information on the King of Pop, log on to tvguide.com for in-depth coverage.